Okay, so welcome to the Art Center East Writing Project. My name is Nancy Knowles and I am president of the board of Art Center East. I'm very happy to welcome everyone here tonight to hear Lindsey Martin Bowen read from her work. Before we get started with the reading, I just want to say that Art Center East is a member-supported nonprofit here in La Grande, Oregon. And we are a local arts organization that provides classes, not only here in La Grande, but also at regional schools, as well as a community music program, and a number of other events that happen here in La Grande. Right now, our current exhibit is called The Big. It's an open exhibit, and there's many local artists that are exhibiting their work as part of that show. So I would encourage folks that are here to come on down to 1006 Penn and have a look at the exhibit. If you're at a distance, you're welcome to come to Art Center East's website and have a look at the exhibit online. We have a virtual tour that's provided by John Howard Realtor. Kindly, they use their special camera to create an interactive exhibit for all of our art shows. So we're really excited to be here tonight with Lindsey. I just want to say a few words to introduce her to you if you haven't heard her work before. She's the author of 4 collections of poetry, including Standing on the Edge of the World from Woodley Press, Inside Virgil's Garage from Chatterhouse, Crossing Kansas with Jim Morrison, and then Where Water Meets the Rock from 39 West Press. And as she said, the Crossing Kansas with Jim Morrison has been her bestseller, and she's coming out with a, I don't know if you call it a sequel when you're writing poetry, but another Jim Morrison anthology in 2023 from Red Bat Press. We're looking forward to that. In addition to the 4 collections of poetry, she's also published 3 novels and many individual poems in literature magazines. She's taught writing and literature at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. She's also taught criminal law, criminal procedure, and criminal justice classes for Blue Mountain Community College here in our backyard in Pendleton, Oregon. And she's available at Facebook and Amazon, and I'll put links to her materials in the chat in case you want to go shopping as you're listening or after you're listening. So it's my pleasure tonight to welcome Lindsey Martin Bowen, and we'll give her some virtual applause. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Nancy, and I appreciate Amelia. And I am thrilled to be here, and I'm so glad the Zoom works this time. So anyway, and thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. I don't know Shelby, but unless it's a Shelby that I don't see any face there. Maybe I know it by face. I don't know Shelby spelled that way. That's why. Anyway, I thought I'd open up with something to be a little bit light. Poems make strange pets. One of them rubs against my leg, moving back and forth in an incessant rhythm. It whines for my attention. Or maybe it wants cream or a cookie, something to crush in its tight little paws. Busy figuring taxes, I ignore its pleas, till finally it leaps onto one of my shoulders, digs in its claws, and we tumble to the floor. Stand up and walk, it huffs, and scrambles into the living room, where it flings itself on a wall. That is me struggling with poetry. I think since I do that, I had arranged it otherwise, but I think since I have that in there, I'll read from my most recent book. This is on my notes, Where Water Meets the Rock. And it's the one by 39 West Press, and I see it's backwards on the screen. But at any rate, this was a fellow who wanted to do my work, and I was just thrilled. And he has a publishing company, and he reads a lot of political things. by some of this really renowned cartoonists. So they're the big guys. But he said he broke even on my book. So that's something. Anyway, this one was one that I was honored with in fact, it's mentioned there. It wasn't, it was just an honorary mention, but it was from the big contest of Writer's Digest in 2016. And I don't know how many were in the non-rhyming poetry, but the whole thing had like 6,000 entries. So I thought, well, if I got an honorable mention, that's something. You know, always the bridesmaid, never the bride, but still it's something. And so I took it at any rate. And they sent me this little thing, so we put it on there to kind of help someone. Anyway, this is called Vegetable Linguistics. 1. Some sprout in earth, dirt, rich mulch, where molecules are born, split, and fuse into more cells. Then sweet potatoes, carrots, beets, and rhubarb, roots, vegetable limbs sinking into blackness, growing deep, building skin to protect soft meat from animals and elements. 2. Some blossom, broccoli, cauliflower, miniature coiffures of granny hair, and shimmer with dew early during June and July when morning glories bloom and climb gates. These vegetables stay awake, feel wind against their heads, wait for the perfect hour before they lie in their beds. 3. Others are towers, monuments of phallic energy, asparagus stems stretched toward the sun, artichokes split spiky leaves at the moon, and celery stalks grow ridges for strength. And can we name sugar cane among these solid shoots? 4. Then come the fungi. Mushrooms bloom in wet places, show button faces and spaces where many dare not step. And Ryan may need to correct me again. Amanita muscaria. No, not yet. See, everyone in Colorado just called it a manta mascara or something like that as they smoked it up. But I looked up the pronunciation after Ryan said something, and that was what it was. And then let's see, I think there's another couple. Oh, here's one that actually was published in New Letters. Backyard burial. Something's up. 2 crows hop onto the fence. They flutter back feathers and lift their claws in a waltz. St. Vitus swooping along a cliff, his hands linked to a long line of dancers. I toss the birds stale cracker crumbs from my pantry. They cackle. Then in the grass, I see the rabbit. Fresh blood circles its twisted head. One open eye glazed like the eyes at Carthage, Rome, or Troy, fallen into ruins. I'll bury the carcass before the July sun rots it, before the crows feast. I break hard dirt under the oak. I am Antigone, defying an unfair edict. The lawnmower, a broken chariot, a relic marking this grave. Roosting on a phone line, the crows laugh like pagan gods. And let me go and see. Okay, one more from this one. Rereading The Second Coming by W.B. Yeats. This is after Ferguson, Missouri, but really, I think since Ferguson, Missouri, it applied even more. No one listens anymore. No one works in tandem. No horses pull this cart. Now trembling, it falls apart. The center hub's blown, exploded, rioting in city squares, rioting along beaches. Is this anarchy or something more? The blood of victims rushes onto shores. Innocence no more. Their lungs fill till they can't speak, can't breathe. Their passions now senseless, uneasy, bringing the strange revelation. The second coming lies on the horizon. It's the day. It's the day. Oh, yes, it's the holy day. It's the day of the dead. A wide-winged beast rises above, eyes black and gleaming, onyx glistening through bone. Oh, mama, come back again. The world's too cold. No lion-bodied beast slouches toward Bethlehem. It's a creature with a jackal's head, a jackal's soul. And then there's one more. Actually, I was going to read this one before that one. But this one I wrote to my mother. Since you left, my plants refuse to speak to me. I drag around a silent household, listen for your words in each room, and shuffle past an empty table. There, morning sunlight glints off that spot where yesterday you left your glasses. Today, smells of dying roses linger, and light spreads across the wall, unlike last night when candlelight carved shadows deep as your eyes, where you exhaled one last breath. Your moans of pain became too intense for words. And now I miss those groans when I hear nothing, no sounds except the thuds of the water heater and the thunder of the furnace firing its last. Let's see, I'm going to read some from Crossing Kansas, and then I will read about 2 or 3 from the new manuscript. But I won't read the first one because it's a little bit long. The second poem in here was also published by Amethyst, let's see, Arsenic. Yeah, it's kind of a weird name. I don't even know if it's still around. This is 2016. And it and then Thorny Locust published 3 more of them. And then it was a finalist as a chapbook because it's since expanded in a contest. So that's why I thought, this is Jim Morrison Takes Me on a Midnight Trip. There he stands, leaning against a door jamb in his tight black leather motorcycle gear. Like James Dean, he purses his lips, then shifts weight from one hip to the other. Tonight he sings of the LA woman, bright lights and rolling down the highway late at night. I pull away, then he touches my shoulder, and I'm hooked for another midnight ride across the city. Cruising asphalt speeds too fast for me to last. And I made all this up. I never met Jim Morrison, but in some ways he's kind of a combination of men in my life. Anyway, Jim sneaks into my room. Something's burning. Scents of molasses and bourbon circle my windowsill. I draw curtains and feel a thin wind, but smells of ashes won't leave. Smoke hovers over my backyard and surrounds Jim Morrison. He echoes warrior howls and stomps his feet in a poison snake dance. Torso twisting, he falls and slithers through Zoysa, rises and falls again, then flails arms, a shaman gone berserk, till he plops into a pile of oak leaves. Patchouli wafts into my room. Jim sneaks in and slips onto a chair. I'm your crawling king snake, he sings, then grins that familiar sneer. Chills shoot through me. I float outside, dance under the apple tree. And let's see. Then the character of La Loba is from both Mexican cultures and Southwest various tribes of Indian. La Loba is the wolf woman, and she works with angels to gather bones of humans and wolves. And so I have as my motto, this is La Loba's song, and I'm not a singer, so, but this is more of a chant, so I can get by with it. This is La Loba's songs to make skeletons rise, because they sing a song first with the angels, okay? And there is in Ezekiel the section, and I found it and I quoted it, and it's up above the poem. I heard a noise. It was the rattling of that the bones come together, bone joining bone. I prophesied as he told me, and they came alive and stood upright. And that's Ezekiel 37. Anyway, tonight we cry in so deep songs. E-yo-yo, E-yo-yo. At the dawn, we will sing of joy. E-yo-yo, E-yo-yo. Our voices will rock the desert, hot with incessant summer winds. E-yo-yo, E-yo-yo. Our songs stir seas, skulls and knuckles rise from the deep, lift to high peaks. E-yo-yo, E-yo-yo. Our words penetrate aspen, oaks, juniper, pines, and Joshua. E-yo-yo, E-yo-yo. Our sounds now strip the forest clean to unearth all those underneath. E-yo-yo, E-yo-yo. The bones we gather rise and dance to our music, and we sing loud praises to the Creator. E-yo-yo, 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 E-yo. And so I being persona, lead Jim Morrison to La Loba. Jim Morrison and I find La Loba. In Oaxaca's market, she strolls as though she has nowhere to go and stops at each stall, then buys honey and grapes and waits at the gate where we enter. A wind hits my face like the hot breath of a fire that eats a cabot in a day, and I feel the heat of her strength in each movement she makes while talking with the guard at the door. She sees us and stops moving her hand. I wonder if she knows why we've come and what she'll say. And I will just let you read what happens. But I do have a little one that was in I-70, but there it was just my bones are glass, and I recaptured it and put after meeting La Loba, my bones are glass, with apologies to Mark Strand because I stole it. My bones are glass. I move through each day, hearing the same tune with the same lack of grace. My bones are glass. They do not play a sweet melody, but clack and cacophonies of icicles cracking in wind. My bones are glass. They tremble when I inch across white-coated fields under a cold moon that signals this strange season. And I think I'll leave that and give you a little bit of Virgil's Garage and a little bit of the first one, if I find it here. I got them all laid out. There it is. Some of these I switched around and hadn't practiced, so I apologize for that. Now, this is inside Virgil's Garage, so the title poem is a little bit different. It's called In Front of Virgil's Garage, which really exists in Lee Summit, Missouri. Yeah, Virgil's Garage up there. But I checked with him and brought him a book so they would sue me. Anyway, I wouldn't expect to find Shakespeare here, but there they are, his volumes, stacked in a corner where their spines grow oily from an old carburetor dripping on a shelf with exhaust pipes, cracked rims. And look, Paradise Lost lies next to them. In the back office, Virgil fingers another tome. I wonder why he doesn't sweep the dusty floor or mop up antifreeze on this January day that's brought him little business. I turn away to watch red clouds marble the sky and blue ones form a mountain range. They set me dreaming, make me rise high above the skyline, far from the suburb where SUVs and trucks command the streets. In the sunset, I search for my father. Mistletoe braided in my hair, I wade through Acheron to find him, or maybe myself. Then I climb from the ditch up a hill to this garage, a metal siding, asphalt roof, and gasoline fumes. Somewhere hemming the horizon, my father's ghost may drift with Charlene, or perhaps by enduring pain, he's become stardust and rises with Venus. I squint, spot Jupiter hiding behind clouds, suck in my breath, and shiver in lead boots. And has anybody here read any of Paradise Lost, Dante? Yeah, Nancy. So the lead boots, there they were, the lead capes for the hypocrisy. And I don't know how many people got that. I imagine you did. Anyway, let's see. Backyard Burial is also here. I just had a couple more from here. Oh yeah, I don't often write anything sexy. But when I do, I kind of make it more in a metaphor. So this is actually a response to Kim Adonisio. Now, I first heard her read at the 2000 AWP conference because my former professor, Jim McKinley, chaired it. So it was in Kansas City, and he said, well, if you and Carl work on it, you know, I'll let you in for $30 or something, which is just like quite a bit more than that. So we didn't have to do much. But that was where I first heard Kim Adonisio, and she had written a song about some motorcycle guy boyfriend, and you couldn't tell it was a sonnet. It was just gorgeous. At any rate, so she later was called to Rockhurst College, and she read there. And I bought the book that has this poem, and it's called What Women Want. And she ascertains women want a red dress. She wants a red dress. But I'm a little different. I said, forget the dress. I want a red car. I want a low-cut two-door with hot leather seats and a 5-speed on the floor. I want it to hum. I want it to growl. I want it to smell of sweet perfume and rev up the way you used to when I walked into the room. I want it to cruise by the blue light where the jazz is hot and lusty and whiz past prospects so fast the cops can't catch me. I want it to scream down back streets, rumble through the plaza, make the geeks and shoppers tremble, then take off and spin gravel in your face when you watch me fly by. I want it to whisk me into the sky like a midnight Santa sleigh, above red clay rooftops and other roaring engines. I want it slick. I want it tight. I want a red car to soar above your house and your rotten garden, to soar above this city with its corrupt politics, to soar above this planet with its legacy of lies, to soar into the heavens, soar and soar and soar. And this next one is kind of what I try to do is kind of write stuff that, you know, things that are in the back of your mind kind of come out. And this is kind of my women's lib thing. It's called A Tiny City of Slaves. And it's got a quote, again, I set aside by C.S. Lewis from Till We Have Faces, which is a great book. The one sin the gods never forgive us is that of being born women. Smelling of patchouli and jasmine, since ancient as a Mideastern city, where women hide smiles behind veils, 3 girls balance water jugs on their heads. Their red, yellow, and turquoise silks twist in the wind, when they arc their backs to steady their burdens. They step over mud and broken tree limbs, moving like hieroglyphics across parchment. The three slip through narrow streets. Near their feet, some animals' entrails rot and pomegranate skins curl. One of the girls squints at the gold dome of a minaret. Its spires poke through gray haze. I look above the muck lying in the path, watch a light filtering through clouds, and try to envision some Byzantium, glimmering red, gold, and blue, far above the city of grief, where voices hiss and crack like a fire in a mosaic tomb. So let's see, I have one more. Okay, this is kind of a sexy one too. Pole dancing at Caesar's Palace. And they didn't have it the first time I went there, but when we came back, they had this. Anyway, her long, brown, sinewy back snakes around a black pipe wound in red ribbon stretching to the ceiling, and her sweet profusion of hair forms the illusion of mane as it splays with every ripple and wave of her torso. She's billed as Salome, daughter of a queen, yet we see no head on a platter. No one spits 3 times. Instead, men hoot at the flick of her wrist, her unspooling thighs, while nearby slot machines clatter and clatter. Anyway, that's enough of this book today. And how am I doing on time, Nancy? I know we started a little bit late.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, I'm gonna just maybe read 2 from this book so I can get a couple in. One of these I wrote to Allison Stone, who actually had the line "out of sight, out of mind" translates to blind and crazy. So I put it to her so she'd know that I was aware I was stealing her line. Beats me. One day I ache to lie under an elm, soak in a haze of smog on a concrete beach. The next I shiver, try to live without heat in a one-room flat above a junkie who races out at dawn to grab a tattered Times. Each day I watch him perk up or drag, shifting like the mercury in a thermostat at my back window. I'd swear I heard him scream last night about lice inching up his quilt, scratching his armpits, but can't remember for sure. I was blue then too. Seems my moods follow his trail like that. And Allison, if out of sight, out of mind translates to blind and crazy, I guess I'll clamber through this night, jog on dew-slick streets to score some kind of fix. And here's one that is based on my aunt, though I made up some stuff. Dancing with Aunt Virginia. I picture a grove where elderberries grow and an old tire swing moans empty. We go there before winds blow cold and frost blots out windows. She leads me to a spot by rows of lilacs and pear trees and teaches me to two-step in twilight. We toss back our heads and stare at a white gibbous moon glowing like some dime on the pavement I might walk tonight, and grumble how time shortchanged her. Evil Cronus, the wizard who always wins. She, a dancer who taught me to waltz years ago, can only move in her dreams, where she unties her hair, her black gypsy strands spinning, and clicks the ghost of a castanet. Yeah, I had a favorite aunt who had a stroke. So anyway, I'm gonna leave that so I can have a little time for, this is from the manuscript. I'm going to read one about the backstory, which kind of gives you the background on this. Why, it started out just to be cashing checks. And I read that both versions, cashing checks with Jim Morrison and cashing checks, and they chose one with Jim Morrison, which I had overlaid it later. They merged together because the poems kept coming. Anyway, backstory. Years ago, when I screamed down asphalt through mauve Kansas fields and the Flint Hills, rock shaman Jim Morrison crawled out of my car stereo while a yellow hornet on the windshield danced like a kachina in a sand painting. It was magic, perhaps. I still don't know. Jim came with me to find Lalova, who was the wolf woman again, in hopes she'd resurrect his bones. But the wolf woman left him alone, and I led him back to Paris and the Père Lachaise cemetery. There, Jim's dark monument, wrought with graffiti, commemorates him. I thought this story had ended, but I was wrong. He won't leave me alone. He pushes into poems, and ignoring his resurrection into this collection, joining figures from everywhere, ancient Greece and Eleusinian mysteries, wild and woolly creatures into frenzies, and postmodern philosophers. Even today, he whispers to me when I stare at a waffled red lace sky filled with popcorn clouds looming above our foothills in this New Year's Day when the Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra plays the Strauss waltz designed with Mideastern chords for Zeitgeist, 1865, 100 years before Jim played live for Ed Sullivan. A dancer in the Vienna show ogles the ballerina, stalks her in palace halls. I hear her sobs echo off of ornate archways where angels bow to Jesus Christ, who cannot hear her screams above the cymbals and kettle drums. I do, and pour ashes over my head. I don't know where that came from. I just don't. At any rate, one of the poems that is within this collection, it kind of works in with the whole thing, and it's from it's published in New Letters last year. Erasures, not this year, but in 2001. Someone's erasing my life. The bungalow where I was born, the chateau where I birthed my daughter, the Cape Cod where I raised my son, all gone. Turquoise ponds we skinny dipped, hot clay shores where we unearthed lands, no more. Only hot winds there, no more cattails and cottages or crows roaming free. No map shows the cabins on the lake where we boated and water skied, as if our lives would roll on and on. No more willows, waters on shores, ebbing and flowing. Jim and I howl at the moon, then slip away, follow shadows into black spaces. We're lunatics who've lost direction, spinning like my cat with an aneurysm, also gone. And they expect us to march uphill, act courageous about our future, winners of a nation, when they block out our victories, our memories, our past. And this is one that has been published in volume 3 of this. And I wrote it, and I decided to use it in the Jim Morrison version of Cashing Checks. Our Nantucket in the foothills. Quite far from Nantucket, we set up our estate, not as plush as the summer palace of Jackie Kennedy Onassis. Her daughter Caroline put it on the market, $65 million for that estate. Erie bought in 1979 and used for family escapes, days hidden by Marsh's vineyard. On the opposite side of this continent, we hide in the foothills and the college town, Northeast Oregon. Our historic home was built in 1906, a Dutch colonial with a barn-shaped roof. Eccentric, perhaps, a match for us, two poets with thin roots. From our front window, we watch each season cross the foothills, bringing wind, snow, mountain flowers, green, then gold bluffs. Unlike the Onassis plan, who watched the Atlantic's rolling cold waves from almost every window, saw their hopes and wishes washing to shore, fishes running aground, going astray. It's good. Any questions? Anybody want to read?
Yay. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Lindsay.
Thank you.
That was
Thank you
fabulous.
for having me. I appreciate it. I haven't looked at the chat yet. Oh,
Do we have any questions for Lindsay?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, thank you, Lindsay. That was delightful. I'm curious, hearing you talk a little bit about sharing two manuscripts with Redback Books, and then you said you had the one that was just cashing checks, and then cashing checks with Jim Morrison, and they picked the Jim Morrison one. And I'm curious about the process. So then, did you like retrofit the first collection with Jim Morrison? Did you have to go? I'm curious about it because I'm working on a project where I've been going back to some older poems and adding to them. Not really revision, but like I mean, it is a revision, but it doesn't feel like a standard revision. So I'm curious about your process and how that worked.
well, it was typically crazy. Anyway, I had been working on this cashing checks. I had this thing going through about the idea of money. Are they going to take away our money? Will we no longer be able to cash checks? Is it all going to be all electronic? It's kind of scary to me. Maybe because I'm old, I don't know. But at any rate, so and I had these poems, and then I had these sections. I have my frenzies, which are in Virgil's Garage, and they're in, and someday I'm just going to book of frenzies, where water meets the rock, where the kind of zany, crazy sort of things. At any rate, so I had that, and then I'd been working on, for some time, tankas. But then I started doing a tanka string. That's my name for it. And what it would be each syllable would be a tanka. Now, not all the time, because it's supposed to turn on the third line in the tanka, because it's 757, and that's where it turns. The last two lines have 7 syllables. Okay, so sometimes I'd have the turn just be in a different tanka. So I have these things I call tanka strings. I have a section of those. And then I can't remember my last section, but anyway, so I had that, and I thought, well, I sent it out a couple of places. Nobody published the book. At any rate, so in the meantime, Jim Morrison wouldn't shut up. So I kept writing poems with him. And in fact, I didn't read the one, but I think I've read it to you guys. It's Jim Morrison Tells Me I Have Greek Feet, which Silver Birch Press in California published, and so it went on Facebook and all, and I got a lot of good response on that too. But that was after Red Book had taken this book, and so I said, "Can I throw this one in?" And I had another one that's in this book about Jim Morrison and I being the persona going to Standing Rock, and actually it would fit in another theme for Silver Birch, so they took that one too. But at any rate, but yeah, all of these things, this was not the end. Now Carl tells me I just scratched the surface with that, but hey, tip of the iceberg. But at any rate, I have read more of his own poetry since then, although I'm not going to put much in there because some things may still be under copyright, so if you don't use too much, you can get by with it. But yeah, I mean, all these other poems kept coming to me, and I don't know why. Like that first thing that I read you, it dawned on me these could be merged together. I don't know why. I just thought, the thing about the Jim Morrison and the persona, you got that tension, the male-female tension going. Or just relationship tension. And I think that adds something, because I did that, and then I had him see himself in so many of my other poems that weren't about him, which is typically Jim Morrison, you know. So at any rate, so that was how it came to be, because I started weaving them in and saying, hey, this works this way. Oh, I can do this and that. So like I said, I had the books, cash and check. And then I had these other poems. And then some of them I revised some to make them work together better. So, and that's when I chose. I probably have spent longer with that book, and with the slow release of it, it's like, huh. The irony is Jim Morrison, the first book I wrote, and it was out in 6 months. So, and this one's longer. Well, the second one, yeah, once he took this, he was right through it. I think probably this is my prettiest book. He took those photos, and it's like, I like it because it's like these look like faces, and then I have, you know, some of the Greek figures in this, and it kind of fits, you know, the Aegean, which I mentioned a few times, which I didn't read those, but at any rate, so that was probably the prettiest, but this one won the award. So I think people just like Jim Morrison. Like I say, I don't know why, and maybe Carol Wright is correct in that maybe it is kind of this, because I was reading something too, that the mind, we think of it as being in our brains, and they're studying it saying, no, you can have a whole consciousness that isn't just your brain. So I guess maybe Jim Morrison and I have that connection. I don't do the drugs he did. I never did. I was always a baby tripper. That's Bob Haynes. I didn't do much at all. But and I'm a lightweight drinker because I can get drunk on 2 glasses of wine. And so I don't do that much. But poem, I would say the suggestion, if you're doing it, put the poems together, see how they play off each other. See how you can tweak them a little. Because sometimes I tweak a title and keep basically the same poem, maybe change a line. And I think there was one, I don't think the Nantucket one originally had Jim Morrison in it, and I just put Jim and I in there. Maybe I had you and I or something before. I don't remember.
Great. Are there other questions for Lindsey?
Yeah, I didn't mention Jim in that one. I didn't. So I threw it in.
Lindsey, I'm curious, like where you started with writing. Is that something you've been doing your whole life, or is this something that came to you?
I have a funny story, and since Bob Haynes is here, he knows about this. I first wrote when I was in junior high. I mean, I was a visual artist, right? I was going to be an artist, and I secretly thought, you know, writing's an art too. But I wrote really bad maudlin poetry, and but something about it, I liked something about the poems. I also wrote some short stories that were pretty good. I think they would even hold up now, and this is from 6th grade. And I know I had a real strict teacher in high school, and I'd only get B+ on her essays, but she gave me A's on my short stories. She did not like my poetry, though. She handed it back without comment. And so that same poetry I shared with Mr. Bob Haynes back in 1969 or 70, because he was studying under Dan Jaffe, and I had just entered Dan Jaffe's class, and I was scared to death of him. And so he laughed so hard because they were so bad. He laughed so hard he cried. And at any rate, so he started coaching me. And then I had Dan Jaffe, and I started reading more contemporary poets. In fact, I was very proud of the fact that I discovered W.S. Merwin before Dan Jaffe did. And I was telling him all about it. He said, oh, well, there are a lot of names out there, blah, blah, blah. Well, next year, Merwin won the Pulitzer. And so Dan Jaffe decided he could include him in the canon. So, but yeah, it's that's where I started, and I started getting, we had a student publication #1, and I had a couple of poems in it, one of which Bob Haynes gave me. It was his poem, and the other one was mine. But at any rate, yeah, that's kind of how it started, and I didn't stop. I just had to keep writing poems, even though, and I would send things out here and there and get some published and a lot rejected. And then I went to graduate school, focused on fiction, but you had to take poetry too. And it was really weird. Then Carl got me going to the writer's place again. But in the meantime, I'd started working on my poetry, and it was getting published. And then my first book published was fiction, but it's also very short. I'd like to do something like that again, because I have this other huge fiction thing that I wrote with the National November thing right in 2018 when we moved here. And I'd like to get it down to where you have these really short scenes, some of them maybe a chapter that's a sentence long. I think that might work with that book. I mean, it's like 200 and some pages now, but it needs to have a lot cut out. But at any rate, I haven't really looked at it. And but I did run across some poems I wrote at the same time, and they were kind of better than I remembered. So we'll see. But yeah, so I've always kind of done both. But the poetry, I just started getting more things published that were poems. And so that encouraged me, because I thought I wasn't wasting my time. If somebody else liked it, okay.
Yeah, great.
But it was kind of a long, drawn out process. I worked also which helped, I guess, with the novel, from 1982 through, well, I worked for newspapers as a reporter in Colorado, and then in Kansas City and Overland Park. And then I worked for Modern Jeweler magazine, which made me decide to go back to graduate school so I could write the truth and in fiction instead of writing lies and nonfiction. So that was the real jump, I think, when I decided I needed to make a living writing, but I needed to do real writing for my soul, because the other, not so much in newspapers, but in magazines, because they aren't at the same standards. And so many of them are just to sell products.
Yep. Yeah, well, thank you. Other questions?
I want to hear from you guys.
What was the poem I gave you?
Pardon?
You said I gave you a poem. What was the poem I gave you?
Oh, the poem. Oh, yeah. It was
That
about
goes
the
back a little
piranha,
way.
about the piranha.
The what?
Remember the piranha?
I don't even remember now.
Oh, well, I do, but it's not. The color my eyes are is piranha or something like that. I can't remember the exact lines now. I guess because I didn't write it.
It's okay. You just made
I did
can't even
tweak
remember what
it. But he tossed it to me because he decided he wasn't sending it out. And I thought, I like this. And so I submitted it to number one with my other poems. And John Stadler liked that one too. Hey, that's the only time I've done that. So Bob Ghost wrote one of my poems. Color your eyes are as piranha. I repeat, piranha. I remember the last line. I saw in you what I never saw before, like we both have captivity in common. Isn't that a great line? That was Bob's line.
Awesome. Well,
let's
let's give Lindsey another round of applause. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me
with us tonight. Yay.
Do we have time for other people to read?
Yeah, I'm just gonna switch off the recording and then we'll go to the open mic if folks want to stick around.